The security guard couldn't believe his eyes when a 7-year-old boy walked into Manhattan's most expensive real estate office carrying a mason jar full of quarters, claiming he wanted to buy the whole building. Tommy Peterson stood barely 4 feet tall in his worn sneakers and faded jeans, his sandy brown hair slightly messy from the October wind. The glass jar in his small hands contained what appeared to be months of saved allowance money, mostly quarters, dimes, and a few crumpled dollar bills. Before starting this beautiful story, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now we can continue with the story. "Excuse me, sir," Tommy said politely to the bewildered security guard. "I need to speak with the owner about purchasing this building. I have the down payment right here." He held up the jar proudly, the coins clinking softly against the glass. The Sterling Properties building towered 62 floors above Fifth Avenue, its gleaming facade reflecting the bustling streets below. Inside the marble-floored lobby, business people in tailored suits hurried past designer furniture and million-dollar artwork, completely oblivious to the small boy who had just made the most audacious real estate proposal in Manhattan history. Marcus Sterling had built his empire from nothing. At 53, he was worth over $2 billion, with properties spanning 3 continents. His penthouse office occupied the entire top floor, overlooking Central Park through floor-to-ceiling windows. Today was particularly significant. He was finalizing the acquisition of a historic Chicago landmark that would cement his status as America's premier commercial real estate developer. The elevator chimed softly as his assistant, Jennifer, brought him the morning's contracts. "The Chicago deal is ready for your signature," she announced, spreading documents across his mahogany desk. "Legal says we can close by Friday." Marcus nodded, adjusting his platinum cufflinks. "Perfect. This will be the largest commercial acquisition in company history." He picked up his Mont Blanc pen, prepared to sign, when his phone buzzed with an internal call from the front desk. "Mr. Sterling," came the security guard's uncertain voice. "We have an unusual situation in the lobby. There's a child here who claims he wants to buy the building." Marcus paused, pen hovering over the contract. "I'm sorry, what?" "A young boy, maybe 7 years old. He's got a jar of coins and says he has a down payment. The receptionist doesn't know how to handle it." A laugh escaped Marcus's lips. "Is this some kind of publicity stunt? Did Channel 7 send a camera crew?" "No, sir. He appears to be alone. Should I escort him out?" Marcus set down his pen, curiosity getting the better of him. In 30 years of real estate, he'd dealt with eccentric billionaires, foreign investors, and corporate raiders, but never a child with pocket change. "Send him up. Let's see what this is about." 5 minutes later, Tommy Peterson stood in the elevator, clutching his jar of coins as it climbed to the 60th floor. He'd spent 3 months planning this moment, ever since he'd seen the for sale sign in the building's window, though he'd later learned it referred to a single office suite, not the entire structure. The elevator doors opened to reveal Sterling Properties' executive reception area. Tommy approached the desk where a woman in a cream-colored suit looked down at him with barely concealed amusement. "You must be our young investor," she said with professional politeness. "Mr. Sterling will see you now." Tommy followed her down a hallway lined with photographs of Marcus Sterling's most famous developments: shopping centers, office complexes, and luxury hotels. At the end of the hall, massive double doors opened to reveal the most impressive office Tommy had ever seen. Marcus Sterling stood with his back turned, silhouetted against the panoramic view of Manhattan. When he turned around, Tommy was struck by his commanding presence, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. "So," Marcus said, gesturing for Tommy to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, "I understand you're interested in purchasing my building." Tommy nodded earnestly, placing the coin jar on the enormous desk. "Yes, sir. I've been saving my allowance for 3 months. I counted it this morning. I have $47.50. Is that enough for a down payment?" Marcus studied the boy's serious expression, noting the careful way he'd arranged his small collection of coins. There was something oddly touching about the child's earnestness. "That's quite a sum. May I ask what you plan to do with a 62-story office building?" Tommy's eyes lit up with excitement. I want to fix it. The building has structural problems that everyone's ignoring. The foundation is settling unevenly, and the support beams on floors 15 through 20 aren't distributed properly. Plus, the heating system is incredibly inefficient. You're losing thousands of dollars every month in energy costs. Marcus blinked in surprise. The boy had just identified issues that had taken his engineering team months to discover. How could you possibly know that? Tommy pulled a wrinkled notebook from his backpack, its pages filled with detailed sketches and measurements. I've been studying the building for weeks. I come here after school and draw what I see. Mom thinks I'm just playing, but I'm working. Marcus took the notebook, his skepticism growing into genuine amazement. The drawings were remarkably sophisticated, architectural plans that showed not just the building's exterior, but detailed cross-sections revealing structural elements that shouldn't be visible to a casual observer. "Tommy," Marcus said carefully, "where did you learn to draw like this?" "I didn't learn it anywhere," Tommy replied with a shrug. "I just see how things fit together, like puzzles, but with buildings instead of pieces." He pointed to one of his drawings. "See here? The way this beam connects to that support column creates a stress point. That's why the building sways more than it should on windy days." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The building's unusual movement in high winds had been a persistent issue that his engineers attributed to its height and age. No one had suggested it was caused by a fundamental structural flaw. "These are very impressive drawings, Tommy, but buildings are complicated. It takes years of training to understand structural engineering." Tommy nodded thoughtfully. "I know. But sometimes seeing things clearly is more important than being trained to see them a certain way." He flipped to another page in his notebook. "Like this. Your architects designed the lobby to be beautiful, but they ignored traffic flow. During rush hours, people create bottlenecks near the elevators because there's no natural path to distribute the crowd." Marcus glanced toward his office windows, visualizing the lobby 60 floors below. The boy was absolutely right. The morning and evening rushes created exactly the kind of congestion Tommy described. "How long have you been interested in buildings?" Marcus asked, his tone shifting from amusement to genuine curiosity. "Forever, I guess. Mom says when I was little, I used to stack my blocks in ways that looked impossible but never fell down. In kindergarten, I fixed the playground equipment when it was wobbly. The teacher said I had spatial intelligence. Whatever that means." Marcus leaned forward, studying Tommy's earnest face. "Where's your mother now?" Tommy's expression clouded slightly. "She's at work. She has 3 jobs because Dad left when I was 5. She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at the library." He brightened again. "But when I buy this building and fix all its problems, we won't have to worry about money anymore." The innocent confidence in Tommy's voice hit Marcus harder than he expected. This wasn't just a precocious child playing pretend. This was a boy trying to solve his family's financial struggles with the only skill he possessed. "Tommy," Marcus said gently, "buying a building like this costs millions of dollars. Your $47.50 is a good start, but it's not quite enough." Tommy's face fell for a moment, then brightened with sudden inspiration. "What if I showed you how to make the building worth more money? Like, a lot more money?" Before Marcus could respond, Tommy had opened his notebook to a section filled with detailed renovation plans. "See, if you reconfigure the office spaces on floors 30 through 40, you could increase rental capacity by 18%. And if you upgrade the elevator system using this design," he pointed to an intricate mechanical drawing, "you could reduce wait times by 43%, which means higher tenant satisfaction and fewer lease terminations." Marcus stared at the drawings, his business mind racing. The boy's calculations appeared sound, his proposed modifications both innovative and practical. "Tommy, where did you get these numbers?" I counted. I watched people using the building for 2 weeks, timing how long they waited for elevators, measuring the office spaces that seemed cramped versus the ones that seemed too big. Then I calculated how much more money you could make if everything worked better. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed his head of operations. "David, I need you to run some numbers for me. What's our average elevator wait time during peak hours?" He listened for a moment, then asked, "And what's our vacancy rate on floors 30 through 40? As David provided the information, Marcus watched Tommy nodding along as if the answers confirmed his calculations. When Marcus hung up, the boy looked at him expectantly. "Your numbers are remarkably accurate," Marcus admitted, "but creating architectural plans requires years of education and professional licensing. These drawings, while impressive, couldn't actually be implemented." Tommy's expression grew determined. What if I could prove they would work? Before Marcus could ask what he meant, Tommy had pulled out what appeared to be a complex three-dimensional puzzle made from cardboard and tape. "I built a scale model of your building at home. This section here represents floors 30 through 40. He began manipulating the model, demonstrating how walls could be reconfigured to create more efficient office layouts. Marcus watched in fascination as Tommy's small hands moved with practiced precision, showing how his proposed changes would affect traffic flow, natural light distribution, and even emergency evacuation routes. The level of detail was extraordinary. The boy had somehow created a functional architectural model using household materials. "This is incredible work, Tommy, but even if your ideas are sound, implementing them would require permits, inspections, licensed contractors. It's not as simple as having good plans." Tommy nodded seriously. "I know. That's why I thought maybe we could be partners. You have the money and the licenses, and I have the ideas. We could split the profits 50-50. The audacity of the proposal made Marcus smile despite himself. "You want to become my business partner? Why not? You're good at buying buildings, and I'm good at making them better. Together, we could probably buy and fix lots of buildings." Tommy's eyes grew bright with excitement. "We could help families like mine find affordable places to live, and you could make even more money. It's what my mom calls a win-win situation." Marcus found himself considering the proposition more seriously than logic suggested. There was something about Tommy's unwavering confidence and genuine desire to help others that resonated with him. More importantly, the boy's architectural insights were far beyond anything Marcus had encountered from supposedly qualified professionals. "Tommy, what you're suggesting is very complicated. Real estate development involves enormous risks and responsibilities. People's livelihoods depend on making the right decisions." "I understand," Tommy replied solemnly. "That's why I've been practicing. I've redesigned every building in my neighborhood, at least in my head. The grocery store on 5th Street could increase foot traffic by 24% if they moved the entrance. The elementary school could fit 3 more classrooms if they reconfigured the cafeteria. The apartment building where me and Mom live could house 6 more families if someone fixed the wasted space in the basement." Marcus leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the boy's matter-of-fact recitation of urban planning solutions. "Have you shared these ideas with anyone else?" Tommy shook his head. "Mom says I shouldn't bother people with my building talk. She thinks it's just a phase, like when I used to be obsessed with dinosaurs. But this is different. I see problems everywhere, and I know how to fix them." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Jennifer entered with a concerned expression. "Mr. Sterling, there's a woman downstairs asking about her son. She seems quite upset." Marcus glanced at Tommy, who suddenly looked very young and slightly guilty. "That would be my mom. I might have forgotten to tell her exactly where I was going after school." "Perhaps we should invite her up," Marcus suggested gently. 10 minutes later, Sarah Peterson sat across from Marcus Sterling, trying to process the surreal situation. She was 34 years old, exhausted from working as a morning shift waitress, afternoon cleaning lady, and evening bookkeeper. The last thing she'd expected was to find her 7-year-old son in the penthouse office of one of New York's most powerful real estate developers. "I'm so sorry," she said for the 3rd time, her hands nervously smoothing her work uniform. "Tommy has always been different. He gets these ideas in his head and doesn't think about how inappropriate they might be." Marcus studied Sarah Peterson, noting the fatigue in her eyes and the pride she clearly felt for her son, despite her embarrassment. "Actually, Mrs. Peterson, Tommy's ideas are quite remarkable. He's shown me architectural plans that rival the work of licensed professionals. Sarah glanced at Tommy's notebook, which lay open on Marcus's desk. He's always drawing buildings and bridges. I thought it was just a hobby, like other kids drawing cars or superheroes. May I ask about Tommy's father? Marcus inquired carefully. Sarah's expression tightened. He left 3 years ago, said he couldn't handle the responsibility of a family, especially with Tommy being so intense about everything. He called Tommy's interests weird obsessions and said the boy needed to learn to be normal. Marcus felt a flash of anger toward a man who would abandon such an extraordinary child. Mrs. Peterson, has Tommy ever been evaluated for gifted programs or special educational opportunities? We can't afford those kinds of assessments, Sarah replied quietly. Public school does its best, but Tommy gets bored easily. His teacher says he's disruptive because he finishes his work too quickly and then tries to help other students. Marcus made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. Mrs. Peterson, I'd like to make you both a proposition. Over the next hour, Marcus outlined an unprecedented arrangement. He would establish a scholarship fund to provide Tommy with access to the best architectural education available, starting with private tutoring in engineering and design. In exchange, Tommy would serve as a junior consultant on select Sterling Properties projects, offering his unique perspective on structural efficiency and tenant satisfaction. This is too generous, Sarah protested. We can't possibly accept such a huge commitment from a stranger. It's not generosity, Marcus replied firmly. It's investment. Your son has a gift that could revolutionize how we think about urban development. I'd be foolish not to nurture that talent. Tommy had been listening quietly, his eyes growing wider as the adults discussed his future. Does this mean I get to help fix buildings for real? It means, Marcus said, that you'll learn everything you need to know to fix buildings properly and safely. But yes, Tommy, it means your ideas could help improve how people live and work in cities around the world. 6 months later, the Sterling Properties building had undergone Tommy's first professional renovation. The elevator modifications had reduced wait times by exactly 43%, just as he'd predicted. The office reconfigurations on floors 30 through 40 had not only increased rental capacity, but it also created more natural light and better airflow, leading to a 97% tenant renewal rate. Marcus stood in his office, watching through the window as construction crews put finishing touches on Tommy's latest project, a small, affordable housing complex designed to maximize living space while minimizing construction costs. Sarah Peterson now worked as Sterling Properties community liaison, helping identify neighborhoods that could benefit from Tommy's innovative approach to urban planning. The phone on Marcus's desk rang. Mr. Sterling, Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. Tommy's here for his 4 o'clock meeting. He says he has ideas for making the subway system more efficient. Marcus smiled, remembering the jar of coins that had started everything. Send him in. And Jennifer? Clear my schedule for the rest of the afternoon. When Tommy has ideas, it's worth taking the time to listen. The door opened and Tommy Peterson entered, now 8 years old and carrying a briefcase instead of a mason jar. He wore a small suit that Sarah had bought him for special occasions, though his sandy hair was still slightly messy from the wind. Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling, Tommy said formally, then grinned. I figured out how to add 6 more subway lines without digging any new tunnels. As Tommy spread his latest plans across the desk, Marcus reflected on how a child's $47.50 had taught him the most valuable lesson of his career, that the best investments aren't always the ones that look most promising on paper. Sometimes they come disguised as impossible dreams carried by small hands with unshakable faith in their own vision. 5 years after that first meeting, Tommy Peterson had become the youngest person ever to earn a provisional architectural license in New York State. Sterling Peterson Development had revolutionized affordable housing across 3 states, proving that innovative design could be both profitable and socially responsible. The boy who had once tried to buy a building with pocket change now owned a trust fund worth millions, established not just to secure his education, but to fund architectural scholarships for other children whose extraordinary talents might otherwise go unrecognized. Marcus Sterling had built his empire by taking calculated risks on sure investments, but his greatest success came from taking an impossible chance on a 7-year-old boy who saw solutions where others saw only problems. In teaching Tommy about business, Marcus had learned something far more valuable, that the most revolutionary ideas often come from minds unburdened by conventional wisdom about what can't be done. As Tommy Peterson continued to redesign the world around him, one building at a time, he never forgot the lesson his mother had taught him. Sometimes the biggest dreams start with the smallest steps, and sometimes, if you believe in your vision strongly enough, $47.50 really can buy you everything you need to change the world. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.